Well, top of the morning to you. It's Father O'Beil here. It's time for Messy Church in March. And today we'll be looking at St. Patrick's Day, a great big festival in the middle of March, March 17th, the feast of St. Patrick of Ireland. And we get to do all sorts of wonderful things. You get to wear green clothes, green beards, you eat soda bread, and you get to eat Irish stew. And anything that's green, you get to eat, except bologna. Don't eat green bologna. It's not good for you. So we're going to look at St. Patrick. Now, of course, St. Patrick's Day is a fun day. And I'm sure at school you'll be wearing some green clothes and things. But St. Patrick was actually a real man. He was actually English. Don't tell the Irish that. Green fuzzies. And as a young boy, about 16 years old or so, he was captured by raiders, which are kind of like pirates that come on shore and would attack villages. And these raiders were from Ireland. And they attacked Patrick's village and they took Patrick prisoner and took him back to Ireland, where he was sold into slavery. And he would spend the next 6 years or so looking after someone's sheep in Ireland with very little food or clothing. He was exposed to the elements. It was a miserable life. But finally, he was able to return home to his village, to his family. And that's when he had a vision. A vision of an angel coming to him and saying, Patrick, I need you to go back to Ireland. I need you to go back to those people that held you prisoner and to share with them the good news of Jesus. I want you to preach and share the gospel in Ireland. And Patrick, a Christian, though he wasn't when a young boy, he wasn't a great church attender, to be honest. Even though his dad was a deacon and his grandfather was a priest, still he answered the call and he went back to Ireland and shared the gospel and converted the pagans of Ireland over to Christianity. And that's one of the many reasons he became a saint. You know, we can learn a lot of things from the lives of saints. In particular for Patrick, the importance of sharing the good news of Jesus, even with people whom we don't like. It must have been hard for Patrick to go back to a people who had treated him so badly. But Patrick truly believed that it would be a good thing to do. Now, we don't have Patrick's story in the Bible, but there is a story in the book of Acts, a story about two men. One man is Peter, who does become a saint. He was a friend of Jesus, knew him quite well. And the other man, his name was Cornelius, and he was a Roman. And Peter's Jewish, and Jews and Romans don't get along. The Romans had conquered Israel. They were an occupying force. There was a lot of friction between the two. And then one day something wonderful happens. And this is the story. It's in the book of Acts, chapter 10. At Caesarea, there was a man named Cornelius, a centurion, a high-ranking army officer, in what was known as the Italian regiment. He and all his family were devout and God-fearing. He gave generously to those in need and prayed to God regularly. One day at about 3 in the afternoon, he had a vision. He distinctly saw an angel of God who came to him and said, Cornelius? And Cornelius stared at him in fear. What is it, Lord? He asked. The angel answered, Your prayers and gifts to the poor have come up as a memorial offering before God. Now send men to Joppa to bring back a man named Simon, who is called Peter. He is staying with Simon the tanner, whose house is by the sea." When the angel who spoke to him had gone, Cornelius called two of his servants and a devout soldier who was one of his attendants. He told them everything that had happened and sent them to Joppa. About noon the following day, as they were on their journey approaching the city, Peter went up on the roof to pray. He became hungry and wanted something to eat. And while the meal was being prepared, he fell into a trance. He saw heaven open and something like a large sheet being let down to earth by its four corners. It contained all kinds of four-footed animals, as well as reptiles of the earth and birds of the air. Then a voice told him, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat." "Surely not, Lord," Peter replied. "I have never eaten anything impure or unclean." See, Jews were only allowed to eat certain animals, and they had to be killed and butchered and prepared in special ways to remain clean, pure, or the word is kosher. And Peter has never eaten anything that he shouldn't have eaten. But this tart is full of animals that Peter has never eaten. "Surely not, Lord," replied Peter. "I have never eaten anything impure or unclean." The voice spoke to him a second time. "Do not call anything impure that God has made clean." This happened 3 times, and immediately the sheet was taken back to heaven. While Peter was wondering about the meaning of the vision, the men sent by Cornelius found out where Simon's house was and stopped at the gate. They called out, asking if Simon, who was known as Peter, was staying there. While Peter was still thinking about the vision, the Spirit said to him, "Simon, 3 men are looking for you. So get up, go downstairs. Do not hesitate to go with them, for I have sent them." Peter went down and said to the men, "I am the one you're looking for. Why have you come?" The men replied, "We have come from Cornelius the centurion. He is a righteous and God-fearing man who is respected by all the Jewish people. A holy angel told him to have you come to his house so that he could hear what you have to say." Then Peter invited the men into the house to be his guests. The next day, Peter started out with them, and some of the brothers from Joppa went along. The following day, he arrived at Caesarea. Cornelius was expecting them and had called together his relatives and close friends. As Peter entered the house, Cornelius met him and fell at his feet in reverence. The story goes on that Peter shares the gospel with Cornelius, his family, the relatives, the friends that were there, and that Cornelius and his family were baptized. They become Christians. Now, remember, Peter's Jewish. He's a believer in Jesus, but he's always kept away from people he doesn't trust or dislike, particularly Romans. I'm sure when the 2 attendants and the 1 officer showed up at Simon the tanner's house, he must have thought, maybe I'm under arrest, maybe I'm going to get into trouble. But still he believed what the Lord said, and he overcame his prejudice and went to Cornelius and entered his house. Again, something that Jews would not normally do is go into a Gentile person's, a Roman's house, because it was considered unclean. Sometimes we are asked to do hard things and to share the good news of Jesus with people we might not always get along with. And that's one of the things we learn from St. Patrick as well. He goes back, as I said, to Ireland, to the people who had imprisoned him, enslaved him, and shared the good news of Jesus and became a hero to the Irish people. There's lots of things we can learn from the saints. And one of the best ways to begin is you can get a big book of saints and read about their stories, their lives, how they lived. Tragically, a lot of them die rather harshly, but another great place to start is maybe with your own names. There was a tradition at one time that everybody was named for a saint or somebody out of the Bible. So Emily, there are a couple of saints called Emily, Saint Emily. Both of them were women, and they were well known for building schools. They were teachers, but they built schools particularly for poor children. And they looked after poor children and widows and people in need. And therefore, we consider them to be saints. Now, Arthur, I couldn't find a Saint Arthur, but your middle name is John. And like Ivan, and Ivan is Russian for John, there's lots of Johns who are saints. You could trip over them. There's so many of them. There's Saint John the Evangelist, who wrote the Gospel of Saint John. There's Saint John of Patmos, who wrote the last book in the Bible called Revelation. And of course, there's Saint John the Baptist, patron saint of Quebec and other places. All famous men who loved Jesus and wrote and did things for him. Let's see, who else do we have? We have Maxwell. Now, there's no Saint Maxwell specifically, but there is a few saints called Maximilian, from which we get the name Maxwell. One of my favorite saints is a fellow by the name of Saint Maximilian Kolbe. He lived actually just in the last century. He was a Polish priest. He went and he built schools and monasteries in India and Japan and was sharing the faith there. But he fell ill and he returned back to his home country of Poland just at the start of World War II. And he spoke out against the Nazis, and for that he was thrown into one of the prisons, one of the concentration camps. And one day, to show just how cruel they were and how tough it would be to escape the prison, the commander of the prison camp ordered 10 men to be executed. And Maximilian Kolbe took the place of one of the men because that man had a family and Kolbe did not have a family. So for that and other reasons, he became a saint. Now, Kaylee, no Saint Kaylee, at least not yet, someday, but middle name is Elizabeth. And there are a few Saint Elizabeth. The most famous is the wife of Zacharias. But Saint Elizabeth is the mother of John the Baptist. She's technically Jesus's aunt, and she gives birth to one of Jesus's friends, John the Baptist. You can read her story in the Bible. It's in Luke chapter 1 and 2. Heidi? Yeah, no Saint Heidi's, not yet. But your middle name is Christine, and there is a Saint Christine who was raised in a pagan family, but by tradition, she was taught the Christian faith by an angel. And her family didn't like her new faith, so they had her thrown into prison, where she continued to teach the good news about Jesus and converted some 300 prisoners to the Christian faith. Who's next? Well, we better go over to the Rainiers. Now there's Gemma, and again, no Saint Gemmas. And of course, Gemma's from the word gem, perhaps precious, but there's no Saint Precious. Fortunately, I gotta love middle names. They've helped me out a lot. Middle name is Ashley, and there is a Saint Ashley. He was a man. Ashley was his last name, and he was a cook. But eventually he becomes a priest and went to teach the faith in England and became very famous for that. But imagine a cook becoming a saint. See, anybody can become a saint. Matthias, of course, is a version of the word Matthew. Saint Matthew writes the gospel, a former tax collector and a good friend of Jesus, great evangelist. And Gabriella, well, Gabriel, of course, is the feminine form of Gabriel. And Gabriel, a couple of saints, but there is one Saint Gabriel, and like his namesake, the angel, he's patron saint of communication workers, because that's what an angel is. Angelos, messenger. They give messages to people from God. And we're all, in a sense, Gabriels or Gabriellas, we are all messengers. We're all meant to share the good news of Jesus Christ. And that's some of the saints. So a good place to start. But don't forget on March 17th to celebrate St. Patrick, who overcame his fear and concern and went back and shared the good news with the people of Ireland, for which he is most famous. Now, we have a number of things we're going to do with this messy church. Of course, it's a bit of an Irish theme to all of it. So we have our little pots of gold. Now, what you can do, let's see if I can adjust the camera here as we're doing this. Oh my goodness, yes. Look at my notes. We'll put that here. Let's keep it in the shot. Move the mouse. And you can try getting the coin into the pot. Maybe you can click it in. Nope. Maybe you can try. Nope. Or maybe you could sort of put it between your knees and walk over the little cauldron. And when you think you're over, there you go. It is kind of small, so you may want to get a bowl or a plate or a pot out of the kitchen when mom or dad aren't using them to make supper and play the game that way. But a little pot and a few gold coins, gold-like coins, are in the kits. For our craft, we're going to make shamrocks, 4-leaf clovers. And here's the one I made earlier that's quite big. See that? And I took some construction paper and cut out the leaves. I used a paper plate and I painted it green. I added a little bit of gold sparkles to make it look special. There's its stem. I didn't get a chance to paint that. I didn't want my fingers to get green because I've got some other things to do today. So you can use this perhaps as a memory device, a way to remember, about sharing the gospel. Remember to tell the good news of Jesus to your family, to a friend, maybe over here, oops, it's falling over. Maybe over here to a classmate, maybe here to a teacher, or somebody else that you know that you can safely talk to. So, or maybe a way to remember to say your prayers. Remember to pray for your family, your friends, classmates, maybe someone that you're having troubles with, maybe that bully at school or someone you don't seem to get along with. Remember to pray for them, or don't forget to pray for yourself. That's quite all right too. So there's the shamrock that you're going to make. So I know we're a little early with this. St. Patrick's Day is not for a little while yet, but I hope when the day comes, March 17th, you'll be having just a fine and happy and glorious day. Not the best Irish accent you'll ever hear. Toolaloola. What can I say? There you go. So listen, have a happy messy church. Have a happy St. Patrick's Day. I will see you in April, and we will be looking at one of the greatest stories of all time, if not the greatest, the story of Easter. So we'll see you then. In the meantime, take care, stay well, stay safe. See you soon.